Welcome, Taurus rising signs of the zodiac, to your horoscope for the month of October through the lens of astrology. I'm your cosmic girl. Trust you're doing well and thank you for joining me here. Pretty active month in the month of October. As if we haven't had enough action in September, it keeps rolling out in October. We're going to talk about what it all means for your rising sign in this video. Let's get to it. Okay, let's talk about your chart ruler Venus opening up the month of October with your horoscope. So Venus is still in Virgo until the 13th of the month. So you have just under 2 weeks of Venus cruising in your natal fifth house of leisure, pleasure, and fun. So you're doing your best, if you will, to practically enjoy your life while you are navigating the real world at the same time. So it is a juggling act with Venus in the fifth house of Virgo until the 13th of October. You have a lot of action going on in your seventh house as well, which is your relationships house, significant one on ones in your life. Mars has been in Scorpio since the 22nd of September and will be in your seventh house of relationships until the 3rd of November. So Mars is here all month, doing really well in your significant one on ones part of your natal chart, which is really nice. Mercury joins Mars on the 6th of the month. So there's a lot of focus on the seventh house. And so when your seventh natal house is active, which it is in the month of October, then it is going to be anything connected to contracts, agreements, negotiations, marriage. Those topics and subjects become super important to you. How you play nice with others in the sandbox kind of natal house. You and others are becoming more of a focus point with so much activity going on in your natal seventh house with Mercury, Mars, and later in the month, the Sun going in the seventh house. So come the 22nd, you'll have a stellium in the seventh house. And that means that those relationships and significant one on ones in your life, Taurus rising signs, are going to be amplified. So, with Venus in the fifth house until the 13th, you can enjoy sifting out the wheat from the chaff in regards to your one on one connections and how they lift your life and your spirits and who's dragging the chain. So you'll be doing a little bit of investigating until the 13th of October in how to keep your leisure and pleasure train going. Let's get into the planets in transits. Like I said, pretty active month. On the 7th, we have our first lunation of the month, and this one is a full moon in Aries in your natal 12th house at 14 degrees. We also have Mercury squaring off with retrograde Pluto on the day of this lunation. This is very fiery. This is very combative. Heads up on the 7th of October. And so what's combative and what's in conflict here and what's very fiery is something going on connected with your work colleagues, your actual professional industry is in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons on the 7th of October. You may be ready to pull the plug, get out of Dodge while you can, or you may be contemplating such things on the 7th when it all seems to be sour grapes connected to your work colleagues, or the industry that you are in. Yeah, it could be a pretty contentious full moon with the moon in the 12th house of things that are unseen. This could be whistleblowing, skeletons out of the closet that may leave a bad taste in everyone's mouth kind of full moon on the 7th for you as a Taurus rising sign. Easy does it. On the 8th, we have the two benefics, your chart ruler Venus and the other benefic Jupiter in supreme harmony in a sextile. What a beautiful day for all of us when the two benefics are playing nice. So for you as a Taurus rising sign on the 8th, after that fiery full moon in Aries on the 7th, you may be decompressing, releasing some energy, whether that's through a day trip, a day spa, leisure time, the 8th of October is all about decompression and you're all up for it. Especially when Venus is sextiling Jupiter, the enticement to play and relax is going to be the tonic for the day. Nice on the 8th. Fascinating astrology on the 11th. Venus opposes retrograde Saturn. Being sold on a product will not be easy for the salesman when they come up against Taurus rising signs on the 11th. With Venus opposing retrograde Saturn, this is seeing the forest for the trees regarding getting anchored into any long term commitments or fair weather dreams. So, the 11th of October looks interesting where you may feel like you're getting a sales pitch. On the 13th, Venus now ingresses into Libra, where she's in domicile. Her dignity improves significantly now that she's in her own sign of rulership. But this is the natal sixth house Taurus rising sign. So Venus may be content in Libra, but what you're going to be focusing in now is on making sure that you feel good about your work, your health, and service, whether that's service you provide or services that are assisting you. This will be about getting your daily schedule and routine just right and balanced with Venus in Libra from the 13th of October moving forward. So this is working well behind the scenes, getting a job done, rolling your sleeves up, getting your hands dirty, just to get some balance and harmony in your daily schedule and routine. The daily grind is going to be needed to be settled down, and this is going to come into focus for you with Venus in the sixth house from the 13th of October moving forward. Venus on the day of her ingress into Libra, she immediately opposes retrograde Neptune. So this is very good for Taurus rising signs to be aware of distraction that prevents you from progression. She's trining retrograde Uranus in Gemini. So you definitely are focusing in on your livelihood, what you value. So this is all weighing up the pros and cons of your financial portfolio and reality. And Venus is also trining Pluto, now stationed direct in Aquarius and in our 10th house, which is looking at the realities of your long term career trajectory, your public name and identity, and your ambitious goals. Big day on the 13th, lots of ruminating. On the 20th, Mercury conjuncts Mars in Scorpio in your natal 7th house. I really like this astrology with Mercury conjunct Mars, this aspect, because we are talking about a conjunction that is the mind meets action. And this is in your natal seventh house of relationships and significant one on ones in your life. So, for Taurus rising signs, this can be a day of a deep DM with you and a significant other. It can be about making plans for the future or considering such things like contracts, finances, or travel plans. Big day on the 20th, but a really nice conjunction with Mercury and Mars coming together in Scorpio when there is a more organic pull towards emotional fulfillment, whatever plans or decrees are being announced on this day. Really nice. On the 21st, the next day, we are having a new moon, our second lunation of the month, and it is in Libra in that natal sixth house at 28 degrees. So we know there was a full moon in Aries at the beginning of the month of October, where your workplace may have been in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. It could have been chaos and mayhem. But now on the 21st, there's a new moon in Libra. Venus is co present in her own sign of rulership, which is really fortuitous. So that natal sixth house gets a refresh, a revamp. So if it all came to a head at that lunation where it was all a bit too much, whether you were trying to get out of something or trying your very best to be okay with not being okay with chaos going on around you, on the 21st, there's a new chance, a new opportunity to start again that feels more in flow, harmonious. It's especially with Venus here. So this can be an improve in your work life with colleagues, your actual professional industry. This can also indicate a new contract or an agreement that feels more balanced. And with a new moon here in Libra, you can bet your bottom dollar that there's going to be nothing undisclosed about what's fair, just, and right. So, brand new, fresh start in the sixth house with a new moon in Libra at 28 degrees. Big day. On the 22nd, the Sun joins Mercury and Mars in your natal seventh house of relationships. So you have a stellium now in that seventh house. So that becomes very loud. And not that it hasn't been loud already in the month of October, I'm sure. It just gets a serious spotlight now put on it. With the Sun in Scorpio, the Sun is seeking out security and stability. So you may be very focused on long-term commitments with this transit, who you partner up with, who you don't, who's got the goods, who doesn't, kind of transit when the Sun is in Scorpio. Seriously doing investigating on the relationships in your life and the validity of them. So discerning transit with the Sun in Scorpio for 4 weeks in your natal seventh. We also have on the 22nd, Neptune retrograding back into Pisces into your 11th house. Not too worried about this. This is the 11th house of your friends, groups, and organizations, other people out there in society kind of house. So Neptune going back into Pisces, joining Saturn now retrograde as well here. It gives you, a Taurus rising sign, an opportunity to release any outdated connections, social connections kind of transit once and for all. Neptune's been cruising in Pisces for like over 14 years. So he's going back for one last look to see who Taurus rising signs is going to take forward with them and who they're going to let go of in connection to your relationships, allies, benefactors, friends, groups, and associations. Your social circles are going through an overhaul with Neptune now back in Pisces in your 11th house with Saturn. On the 24th, we have Mercury trine Jupiter. Great day for contracts, getting out and about, planning a day trip, having a barbecue, hang out with your neighbors. The 24th is cruise day with Mercury trining Jupiter. The next day on the 25th, Mercury trines retrograde Saturn. Great for reconnecting with people, places, and things that have been missing in action. Where is my tribe? You may be seeking them out, or you could see a return of old faces or opportunities with Mercury trining retrograde Saturn on the 25th. From the 27th to the 29th, we have Mars trining retrograde Saturn and trining Jupiter. Great 2 days with Mars in your seventh house, connecting nicely with retrograde Saturn and Jupiter from your 11th to your third house. This is beautiful. This is a grand water trine where things are flowing quite harmoniously. We like that. And being a water trine, we're talking about our feelings, our emotions. We're dropping into our psychic selves. Our intuition is on point from the 27th to the 29th. So you as a Taurus rising sign might be living your absolute bliss these 2 days, reconnecting with people, enjoying the community, having fun, really networking well. You seem to have the gift of the gab. Everyone seems to have a smile on their dial kind of 2 days. Enjoy it from the 27th to the 29th when Mars trines retrograde Saturn and trines Jupiter. Happy days. Mercury, too, on the 29th is trining retrograde Neptune, sort of doubling down on the ease of conversation and flow. You may be reminiscing about times gone by with friends, or maybe even revamping old dreams and goals is up for rumination with Mercury trine retrograde Neptune as well on the 29th. Later in the day, Neptune now leaves your natal seventh house, leaves Mars and the Sun behind, and moves into Sagittarius into your natal eighth house, moving into November. He immediately opposes retrograde Uranus. Interesting day on the 29th with Mercury at the very least. So, with Mercury in your natal 8th house, and Mercury wants to bring argument to the natal 8th house because that's what Mercury is ultimately about. He wants to argue the point. So, you may find yourself going back and forwards over the pros and cons or the validity, if you will, of committing and anchoring into any financial agreements with other people with this transit. So it all may not be, wine and chocolates kind of transit with Mercury in its sign of detriment Sagittarius from the 29th of October moving into November. But Mercury is good at arguing the point because he simply wants to understand why he should be teaming up with other people. So if you get a proposal regarding connecting with financial opportunities or building on your wealth, you're going to have a keen eye and a discernment about you, but it can come off as combative. So you'll be a little bit extra, if you will, when it comes to integrating with others financially and really getting quite almost objecting the optimism that's on hand when it comes to teaming up financially or building on your wealth bank. So interesting transit with Mercury and Sagittarius, but it is a natal 8th house of transformation. So you can be struggling with teaming up versus individuality with this transit is what I'm getting for you. We also have Mercury on the 29th opposing retrograde Uranus. So, yeah, this is about disrupting the status quo, not wanting to integrate, not wanting to connect because you may be feeling a little bit sensitive about financial exposure or your livelihood or even being a little bit more coveted about your assets and possessions on the 29th. Yeah. I think this is quite interesting astrology for you, Taurus rising signs with Mercury in the 8th, because you have the potential with Mercury here to transform your natal 8th house of combined resources. But Mercury in Sagittarius just finds it difficult to believe that people have good intentions. And that's where I think the argument with the mind comes in. So try not to be too critical, is my healthy advice for this transit with Mercury in the natal 8th house. Okay, the last 2 days of the month from the 30th to the 31st of October, we have Mercury sextiling Pluto direct in Aquarius. Yeah, this is really nice for committing to a personal ambition connected to your career, your public name or identity. You may also be on board with a long term contract regarding your professional industry or your career. Could be going through a little bit of an upgrade here from the 30th to the 31st. The opportunity is there to cement something concrete, but free will always takes precedence. But just read the fine print, no matter what you do, before you sign on the dotted line, shake hands, or put a ring on it with Mercury and Sagittarius sextiling Pluto direct in Aquarius, because this is for the long term kind of alignment. So read the fine print, not once, not twice, but thrice with Mercury sextile Pluto. But the opportunities are there for expansion, but please have some discernment. Okay. Happy Halloween to all who celebrate this wonderful spooky event on the 31st of October. Thanks for tuning in to Taurus Rising Signs. That's your horoscope for the month of October. Chart rule of Venus is well positioned in Libra in your natal 6th house, balancing out your scheduled daily routine will be more organic now that Venus is in her sign of rulership. Enjoy that. Until next time, Taurus Rising Signs, stay cosmic.